Hello, this is Lanka News Center. I'm talking to you from Colombo from our studios. And we are here to bring you insightful stories that matters the island nation, the Sri Lankans. Let's take a look at the top stories.
President has failed to uphold the constitution and democratic processes. Economy hanging on life support. President Sirisena fails to meet his own deadline. Parliament to take up a motion of confidence. Women take to the street demanding an end to the political crisis.
The current political crisis in Sri Lanka began in late October when President Sirisena sacked Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe from his post of Prime Minister and decided to appoint his rival, former President and Member of Parliament Mahinda Rajapaksa. Constitutional expert Dr. Jayampathy Wickramaratne, who is also a Member of Parliament, says that it is President Sirisena and him alone who is responsible for the current crisis in Sri Lanka, as he has failed to uphold constitution as well as the democratic principles and processes that we saw upon when assuming duties.
The present crisis has been caused by a number of unconstitutional moves by President Sirisena. On the 25th and 26th of October, the government passed several bills, regulations and orders in Parliament, including a money bill. So, it was clear that the government had a clear majority. A few months earlier, on the 4th of April, the government defeated a no-confidence motion against it by a comfortable majority of 46 votes. But then on the 26th, the President removed Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe unconstitutionally and appointed Mr. Rajapaksa as Prime Minister, who has up to today been unable to win a single vote in Parliament. Then he prorogued Parliament. Then under pressure called an earlier session of Parliament on the 14th of November. Parliament was to meet on the 16th. But then in the meantime he dissolved Parliament. And now he says that he will not appoint Mr. Wickremesinghe even if all 225 members of Parliament support him in Parliament. So this is nothing but unconstitutional moves on the part of the President. His statement that he will not appoint Mr. Wickremesinghe even if all 225 MPs support him shows his total disregard for democracy and for constitutionalism in this country. And it has, there are a number of court cases. These issues should never have gone to court if the constitution had been followed. The country is at a standstill. The budget for 2019 has not been passed. Investors are not coming. People are taking away their monies from Sri Lanka. Tourists are not coming. The economy has suffered very much. Contractors complain that they are not being paid by the government and state institutions. Yesterday, I was told that in certain institutions, bonuses are not being paid. So, there is a huge crisis, all as a result of Mr. Sirisena's total disregard for democracy and the constitution of this country, which he has sworn to uphold.
Former State Minister of National Policies and Economic Affairs Dr. Harsha De Silva says that Sri Lanka's economy is on a life support with the act of President Sirisena. He called upon President Sirisena to act immediately and rescue the plunging economy. He pointed out that the funds have not been allocated for most of the government functions, and therefore all government activities, functions and state machinery will come to a standstill abruptly.
Some people have been attempting to misinterpret the constitution of Sri Lanka in the ability of the president to spend money outside the authority of parliament. Chapter 17, 148 of the constitution. Parliament shall have full control over public finance. So that is very clear. And many other things derive from that full control. For instance, 149 says, all funds collected by the government, be it taxes, levies, loans, goes to what is called a consolidated fund. Now, the consolidated fund is the repository of all funds. In 150 says withdrawal of sums from the consolidated fund. Save as otherwise expressly provided in paragraphs 3 and 4 of this article, no sum shall be withdrawn from the consolidated fund except under the authority of a warrant under the hand of the minister in charge of the subject of finance. So, very clearly says two things, except in two conditions. In every other condition, the Minister of Finance must sign what is called a warrant, and only then, based on that warrant, a particular sum can be withdrawn from that bucket or from that consolidated fund. That if Parliament is dissolved before the appropriation bill is passed, which means in layman's terms, before the budget is approved, Parliament is dissolved. Okay, so that is something like that now we have. No one has been able to present the budget, no vote of account has been able to be presented by anyone. So as of 1 January 2019, there is no plan to spend money. So this is a situation exactly as mentioned in the Constitution. And in that what it says is, okay, the President can spend or approve out of the consolidated fund monies sufficient for 3 months from the date the new Parliament sits. Because it is very clear in the elections law that if the Parliament is dissolved, he also has to provide the date for the election and for the first sitting of the new Parliament. So from that date onwards. So then a constitutional question arises, if the Supreme Court rules the dissolution is legal, which means the Parliament is dissolved. Now, if the Parliament is dissolved, elections are called, the President does not have the authority to spend from the day of the new Parliament sits. Then who authorizes the money to be spent from 1st of January to the day the new Parliament sits? It is very clear in the Constitution. It is the Minister of Finance. So in that, there has to be a Prime Minister who commands the majority of the House, who is appointed the Prime Minister, and then he together with the President will appoint a Cabinet, and in that Cabinet there shall be a Minister of Finance, and that Minister of Finance shall sign the warrant for the expenditure until the first day of the Parliament.
Meanwhile, Chairman of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Professor G.L. Peiris, acknowledged the need to allocate funds for year 2019. He conceded that powers to allocate funds is vested with Parliament. He pointed out that without a government, funds cannot be allocated by the Parliament. Therefore, he called for an immediate solution to the current crisis, and he pointed out that there should be a proper government, a legal government in power.
ජනවාරි මාසයේ රජයේ වියදම් සඳහා December 31ට පෙර
We have to allocate funds for next year by 31st December, either by vote of account or an appropriation bill. According to Article 148 of the Constitution, the Executive has no power to allocate funds, and it is only the Parliament that is vested with the authority to allocate public funds. Only a government could introduce a money bill, and as such, there must be a government. Therefore, we need to resolve this soon, Professor Peiris said.
ඉක්මනට විසඳන්න අවශ්‍ය දෙයක්.
Sri Lankan President Maithripala Sirisena, who is also the leader of SLFP, in meeting his colleagues, his party members last week, promised to end the current crisis within 7 days. That was last Wednesday. However, up to now, he has not taken any tangible action to end the crisis.
However, as the deadline ends today, there seems to be no solution to the constitutional crisis that has engulfed the island nation anytime soon. Just last week, Sirisena had also claimed in a video interview with the local daily that Mahinda Rajapaksa had tried to bribe politicians in order to show a majority in the country's parliament. There was a call for the price of MPs in parliament. I think it was just like calling for tenders. I personally know, and it came to my attention, that some had asked for 500 million rupees. On this question, I think that the reason Mahinda Rajapaksa couldn't make a majority of 113 was because the prices went up. This is the reason for the present situation and crisis. Otherwise, if Mahinda Rajapaksa could have made the 113, this problem wouldn't have been drawn out for 1.5 months, and there wouldn't have been this political crisis.
In this backdrop, the anti-corruption watchdog Transparency International has called upon the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery and corruption, to investigate the remarks made by Maithripala Sirisena, President of Sri Lanka, where he mentioned that there had been attempts to bribe members of parliament to cross over to form a new government.
The President's acknowledgement in an interview with the Daily Mirror last week that vast sums of money had been solicited and offered to MPs in exchange for their allegiance underscores the importance of comprehensive and timely investigation by commissions to investigate allegations of bribe or corruption. Whilst the President states that he will never support the bribing of politicians, he acknowledges personal knowledge of bribes being demanded, which is indicative of the potential pattern of criminal activity involving politicians and clandestine political intermediaries. Executive Director of Transparency International Sri Lanka, Asoka Besekara, said.
Remote Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe would not have expected this much of support from his MP colleagues in Parliament. 122 MPs signed a special letter to express their confidence and support to the removed Prime Minister a couple of weeks ago. The Sri Lanka Parliament will take up a motion when they reconvene on Wednesday to express their confidence on deposed Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, which is going to be a very, very special feature because under the 1978 Constitution, what Sri Lankans have so far witnessed is no confidence motions, but this time it is going to be a motion of confidence to support Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe.
The motion is to be submitted by the United National Party in the wake of the President Maithripala Sirisena's declaration stating that he would not reappoint Mr. Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister even if all 225 MPs in Parliament support him. Meanwhile, leader of All Sri Lankan Makkal Congress, Rishad Badudin, said that they will support Ranil Wickremesinghe to be the Prime Minister. Why are we asking for Ranil Wickremesinghe to be appointed as Prime Minister? We have a constitution. We can't dance according to the whims and fancies of certain people. We have to work according to the constitution. That is our fundamental right. Even in my religion it says that we have to live according to the constitution of the country that we reside in. In late October, His Excellency the President removed the then Prime Minister Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe from the post of Premiership. The President has no such right to remove him like that. He removed us who were ministers at that time. That was also wrong. If he wants to remove any minister, he has to discuss it with the Prime Minister first. Even if 225 MPs support a certain person, he still said he will not appoint him. That is against the Constitution as well. We ask the President to please act according to the Constitution. We have no personal relationship with either Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe or United National Party. All we want is to protect Constitution and democracy in Sri Lanka. So as the All Sri Lankan Makkal Congress, we request the President to go back to the status quo as the 26th of October and appoint Ranil Wickremesinghe as the Prime Minister.
Sri Lankan women took to the streets to protest against the political crisis set off by President Maithripala Sirisena, and they in fact demanded that President should act fast and in a responsible manner to bring an end to the current political crisis, which impacts every sphere in life.
A collective led by women including civil society activists, professionals and actresses clad in black and carrying banners staged a protest march from the Goldface Green to Presidential Secretariat. Despite the rain, the women stood in front of the Presidential Secretariat and demanded the President to protect our children, preserve our Constitution and do his duty for the country.
Well, that's all we have for today from Lanka News Centre, and we wish to meet you regularly. Thank you.